here's it is to the end of the night. Cheers to you. Tis better to buy a small bouquet and give it to your friend this very day than a bushel of roses, white and red, to lay on his coffin after he's dead. So cheers. Good seeing you. Please let me know how you like. But coming up this week, what we have is the first North Korean national brought to the United States to stand trial for money laundering offenses. Google's top security teams unilaterally shut down a counterterrorism operation. And Swiss cybersecurity firm says it accessed the servers of a SolarWinds hacking group. And that's going to be an intro into what we're talking about tonight is the counterattack. Should you? Should you? This is a discussion, so please feel free to throw all your questions up in the chat or your commentary even. I'll definitely see them. And let's move forward. All right, so first up, we have the first North Korean national brought up to the United States to stand trial for money laundering offenses. Oh, Cyber Beard Sec, woo, just passed my EJPT. Yo, congratulations. So happy for you. So happy for you. Congratulations, man. That is awesome. Excellent, awesome. Round of applause for you, man. Congratulations. That is excellent. And Dev Nolzan, can you recommend a good cyber news aggregating site? Actually, no, I can't. I generally find most of these by a massive combination of Twitter, Facebook, as well as suggestions from Google and what else? A few other places. I don't have one particular area I go to for this stuff. I just kind of dig my nose into the news and anything that pops up cyber, I grab and I save all week. So fortunately I don't, but if you do find one, please let me know, because that might make this a little easier. All right, those are the links. Again, congratulations, man. Awesome news. So can I do a split screen to see the articles? I actually don't pull up the articles. I'm reading to you guys from a notepad document basically. So I can next time I'll add that to the content as an idea. I did want to do this though. One sec. I wanted to switch over to this week. Okay. Sorry, I'm also getting used to the new camera position. I'm having to almost look behind me to look at one of my screens. All right. So North Korea on Friday severed diplomatic ties with Malaysia after that country's highest court agreed to extradite a North Korean man accused of money laundering to the U.S. A major coup in Washington's efforts to choke Pyongyang. Oh, I'm so horrible with that. Pyongyang's illicit trade. In a ruling last week, a Malaysian federal court approved the extradition of a North Korean citizen, Mung Chol Myong, rejecting his argument that the case against him was politically motivated and that he was caught in the crosshairs of diplomatic enmity between North Korea and Washington. It's been a long week. Washington has sought to bring Mr. Mun to the United States to face criminal charges that he laundered money through front companies and violated international sanctions by helping to ship prohibited luxury goods from Singapore to North Korea on behalf of the regime. Mr. Mun was arrested in 2019 in Malaysia, where he had moved from Singapore in 2008. Mr. Mun would be the first North Korean extradited to the U.S. to face a criminal trial. His extradition is part of Washington's effort to crack down on what it has described as widespread sanctions evading activities by North Korean businessmen and diplomats. Over the years, the United Nations Security Council has imposed a series of increasingly stringent sanctions on North Korea, seeking to strangle the country's access to foreign currency, which it has used to help finance its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. On Friday, North Korea identified the United States as the backstage manipulator and main culprit behind Mr. Mun's extradition, warning that Washington will have to pay a due price. It is a nefarious act, an unpardonably heavy crime, North Korea's foreign ministry said in a statement carried by its official Korean Central News Agency on Friday, accusing Malaysia of offering Mr. Mun as sacrifice of the U.S. hostile policy. The total severance of the diplomatic relations with Malaysia would go into effect immediately. Now, relations between North Korea and Malaysia were already frosty after Mr. Kim's estranged half-brother Kim Jong-nam was assassinated at the Kuala Lumpur airport in February of 2017. Two women, hired by agents from North Korea, smeared his face with the internationally banned VX nerve agent. That happened. North Korea denied involvement. After the incident, the two countries expelled ambassadors from their capitals. North Korea's severance of ties with Malaysia will deepen its diplomatic isolation after North conducted its sixth and last nuclear test in 2017 in defiance of the United Nations resolutions. Several countries, including Mexico, Spain, and Kuwait, expelled North Korean ambassadors. North Korean diplomats have also deserted their overseas postings in recent years. Tae Yong-ho, a minister in North Korean embassy in London, defected to Seoul in 2016 with his wife and two sons. Jo Sung-gil, Jo Sung-gil, a senior North Korean diplomat who disappeared from Italy in late 2018, also ended up in Seoul, according to South Korean lawmakers briefed on the matter. Ryu Kwan-woo, a senior North Korean diplomat who fled his posting in Kuwait in 2019, has turned up in South Korea as well. Cho Son-hui, first vice foreign minister of North Korea, said on Thursday that North Korea felt no need to respond to the U.S. delaying time trick, and that dialogue would only be possible after the United States ended its hostile policy. During his hearing in Malaysia, Mr. Mun, who is in his 50s, denied money laundering or issuing fraudulent documents to support illicit shipments to his home country. His lawyer called him a pawn caught in the rivalry between the U.S. and North Korea. See what happens when you try reading Korean news? I see you, Cyberbeard Sec. No worries there, Miles Roman. Oh, what are North Koreans doing out of their country? Like, I thought they were not allowed to leave. Okay, so that's interesting. I actually wanted to talk on that. If you are unfamiliar with North Korea cyber operations, okay, this is public knowledge. I want to go ahead and start with that, okay? It can be found in multiple books. Cyber War is the most recent one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head that describes the operations that go on involving North Korean citizens whenever they're acting on behalf of the government. Very frequently, they are sent abroad to learn their skills and their tradecraft in other countries, and then they will be stationed in other foreign countries to gain access to a non-monitored internet line of some sort, or a less than monitored internet line, if you will. Most common one, obviously, would be China, being that it's so close, but they've been heard of in all over, especially the Asian Pacific area. Pardon me. And what ends up happening is they will conduct the operations on behalf of the North Korean government remotely, and then send or money launder into accounts that are then used by the government on behalf of other agents. This as well as illegal or illicit trade between the country via shipping are the two primary methods of currency generation for the country at least the ones that the US are trying to crack down on. Okay, so hope that helps explain what's happening here. Now, in this, you see an individual who previously was located. What did it say it was located in? He moved. So he moved from Singapore to Malaysia. That's where he had moved to, and then in Malaysia, then arrested and remanded him. Potential action. So this is new. We've never seen this before. Now, here's the question. Is this considered legal? It is, but think about it from the fact that we are in a cyber war, but it's not an official cyber war. How are prisoners treated differently in the intelligence community versus during a period of wartime, quote unquote? Think on the idea behind being an attacker that is working for a government. Sometimes it can be in an unwilling state. Other times it can be in a solicited state of, we will give you extra benefits. I don't know what this person's particular interest is, but being forced into this. Where's the benefit? If they're being forced and coerced into doing these actions, or if they're not, too. Just things to think about and consider when we're talking about the idea of the unofficial, official cyber war that we're constantly in. What happens once it becomes official? I'm not going to read that 32-bit hash, but legal gets wishy-washy when you're dealing with other countries, especially non-NATO ones. Correct. Even NATO ones, it still gets a little bit wishy-washy when you're talking about cyber, because you're talking about cyber activity that in all purposes looks very militaristic and planned, and their strategic goals years out. But this is an unofficial war, not even a Cold War technically. It's an unofficial cyber war. So in this, what's the prisoner exchange like? Is there a prisoner exchange, or does everybody now should start expecting just a non-agreement to be acknowledged as a cyber individual that worked under the government entity that they're working for? How does this look? These are the things that, as we're getting into a newer generation, that we're going to have to start addressing and being aware of too. Anyway, just 2 cents on it and some things to think about. How you doing, Palmy? I see you in chat. All right, so moving forward, if you have any other questions or anything that pops up too, feel free to throw it in. I don't mind jumping back and around. It's all over the place. All right, so moving on to a little bit more of the, cloak and dagger and cyber secrets going on all over the world. Google's top security teams unilaterally shut down a counterterrorism operation. Jab 3030, aren't we still at war with North Korea? Technically, yes, you are correct. We are in I think it's a ceasefire. There's not an official accord temporarily. It's just like, hold on. Did I just lose? I did. Mm-hmm. Yikes. Camera went out. Shouldn't. There we are. We're back. Okay. Ta-da! Anybody else remember episode 1 when I was freaking out? This is old hat for me now. Okay, so moving. Oh, I know. It was an ICU Defnil and it was North Korea. Maybe. Maybe. Okay, moving forward. It might have been Google too, because Google's top security team unilaterally shut down a counterterrorism operation. Google's security team publicly exposed a 9-month hacking operation. What wasn't disclosed, the move shut down an active counter-terrorist operation being conducted by a Western government. The decision has raised alarms inside Google and elsewhere. Now, Google does run some of the most venerated cybersecurity operations on the planet. It's massive. Project Zero team, for example, finds powerful, undiscovered security vulnerabilities, while its threat analytics... It's Friday, y'all. Threat analysis group directly counters hacking backed by governments, including North Korea, China, and Russia. And those two teams caught an unexpectedly big fish, an expert hacking group exploiting 11 powerful vulnerabilities to compromise devices running iOS, Android, and Windows. This is from MIT Technology Review, and they have learned that the hackers in question were actually Western government operatives actively conducting a counterterrorism operation. The company's decision to stop and publicize the attack caused internal division at Google and raised questions inside the intelligence communities of the United States and its allies. Hackers are exploiting the same types of software vulnerabilities over and over again because companies often miss the forest for the trees. A pair of recent Google blog posts detailed the collection of the zero-day vulnerabilities that it discovered hackers using over the course of 9 months. The exploits, which went back to early 2020 and used never-before-seen techniques, were watering hole attacks that would provide malware to visitors via the infected websites. These caught the attention of cybersecurity experts thanks to their scale, the sophistication, and the speed in their effectiveness. Now, with Google's announcement, though, they proceeded to leave out who was responsible for the attack and who was being targeted, as well as the important technical information on the malware or the domains used in the operation, something we frequently refer to as indicators of compromise or IOCs. Now, security companies regularly shut down exploits that are being used by friendly governments, but such actions are rarely made public. In response to this incident, some Google employees have argued that counterterrorism missions ought to be out of bounds of public disclosure. Others believe the company was entirely within its rights, and that the announcement serves to protect users and make the internet more secure. Project Zero is dedicated to finding and patching zero-day vulnerabilities and posting technical research designed to advance the understanding of novel security vulnerabilities and exploitation techniques across the research community, a Google spokesperson said in a statement. We believe sharing this research leads to better defensive strategies and increases security for everyone. We don't perform attribution as part of this research. Really key there. They don't perform attribution as part of this research. It's true that Project Zero does not formally attribute hacking to specific groups, but right next door, the Threat Analysis Group, which also worked on the project, does perform attribution. Google admitted many more details than just the name of the government behind the hacks, and though that information the teams knew internally who the hacker and targets were, it's not clear whether Google gave advance notice to government officials and that they would be publicizing the shutdown, the method of attack. According to former senior U.S. intelligence officials, Western operations are recognizable, probably identifiable when you're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. There are certain hallmarks in Western operations that are not present in other entities. You can see it translated down into the code, said the former official, who is not authorized to comment on operations and spoke on condition of anonymity. And this is where I think one of the key ethical dimensions comes in. How one treats intelligence activity or law enforcement activity driven under democratic oversight within a lawfully elected representative government is very different from that of an authoritarian regime. There are certain hallmarks in Western operations that are not present in other entities. You can see it translate down to the code. The oversight is baked in the Western operations at the technical, tradecraft, and procedural level, they added. Google found the hacking group exploiting 11 zero-day vulnerabilities in just the 9 months. But the software that was attacked included the Safari browser on iPhones and also many Google products, including the Chrome browser on Android phones and Windows computers. Instead of just focusing on who was behind the targeted by a specific operation, Google decided to take broader action for everyone. The justification was that even if a Western government was the one exploiting these vulnerabilities today, it will eventually be used by others, and so the right choice is always to fix the flaw today. Now, this discussion is very large. Okay, the entire article is it's a very detailed write-up. So I'm going to save the rest for you to go over back and forth and see what people's take on it. However, we've gotten the key facts here. They identified 11 vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities were highly active, and they worked. They were used in watering hole attacks. They saw them in the wild. They exploited the Chrome browser, which is a Google product, and Google shut them down. Between here and there, whether or not they were or were not involved in knowing at the time that they shut it down that it was a counter intel operation or anything like that, the question is do you use 11 vulnerabilities continuously? And would Google have been potentially at risk here by leaving those vulnerabilities up for an extended period of time? What if those vulnerabilities had become part of a malware kit? Google has a separate SOC for the government. Thanos Gold. Google has a separate SOC for the government, not that I'm aware of. They have research teams, but I do not know how they break down a company of their size. I imagine that they have a U.S. government liaison that just deals with whoever needs to submit requests from the federal government for whatever reason. I'm sure it's probably a whole team that involves someone from PR and someone from technical. A comment from Hash. I'm just going to call you Hash Person. Hash Person. I don't 100% believe all of this. All of the information around this. Every time I hear this is hurting counterterrorism, my BS meter goes off, much like Think of the Children. This feeds into the U.S. government's ongoing narrative to try and weaken consumer encryption and security work. Any vulnerability does go towards that. And I can see your point there, right? Trust us, we're doing it for good. It can be hard to chew on. Hey, Thanos God, one question at a time, please. Or say it once. We get it pretty quick. Western government, ETH code, Western government, please expand. So Western government is generally stated, especially when being written by the United States, as the U.S. and its allies, primarily. You can say things like United Kingdom, other European countries, things like that. But when you're talking counterintelligence or intelligence, the intelligence apparatus, it's United States and then the close allies that are part of the intelligence community for collection and dissemination globally. Do I know WTFPL license? I do not. Hard Carry On Canyon. I'm going to call you Hard Canyon. Yeah. Do I know the WTFPL license? I do not know that license off the top of my head. Yeah. So the questions here are, where's the oversight for counterterrorism? I mean, there is oversight, right? But to what degree does Google hold the liability in their own product, or there are known vulnerabilities, they discover known vulnerabilities, and then, you know, there's this operation going on, this counterterrorism operation going on, and they're at fault now because they patched the vulnerabilities in their services? If those vulnerabilities were flipped around and then they were being used against the US, what would this conversation now look like? Right? And keep in mind, I'm not jumping on either side of this conversation. I'm just throwing a lot of hypotheticals here, because at the end of the day, we're the analysts, right? The blue team, we work to be the operation side of it. But, you know, we've recently had conversations on cyber secrets. Cyber secrets over and over again. So I thought we would get a little more analytical in some of these news topics this week, because the technical stuff was a little lacking. Exit. All the Kali tools leave fingerprints. The other state actors have their own toolboxes, which leave their own traces. Correct. When you talk about reverse engineering malware, not just blowing it up. All right. So the quickest way to analyze malware is to click it and see what it does in a safe environment with monitoring tools. That's the absolute quickest way that you'll find out what malware does. However, advanced groups, advanced malware, have multiple redundancies to prevent that from happening. If you think of bomb movies, or bombs that are used in movies, you know what I mean? Like the explosives with the countdown timer and 10, 9, 8, and then anticipation. It's like, cut the blue wire, cut the red wire, cut the blue wire, cut the red wire, over and over again, right? Realistically, there are some movies that show that don't open the box. For all you know, there's a trigger connected to the hinge. Don't move it at all. It's likely homemade, and it might just go off on you. Don't, you know, all these things. That's why they say don't mess with it at all. Just call an expert, right? Similar to malware. When you start dealing with the advanced stuff, the lower stuff, click it, see what it does, make sure you're in a safe box with monitoring tools. The more advanced stuff, there will be monitoring for the monitoring. Are you monitoring what they're doing? And they will look for it. They will put delays on their timers, long delays, 14 days, 30 days plus. They will ensure that they have access to the internet in some way, shape, or form. And it's not just BS access to the internet either. Some will self-detonate. If they find that so many conditions aren't met appropriately, they'll just delete themselves from the file and then kill the process. So they can't be analyzed. Yeah, so with that, when you're talking about the fingerprints and the more complicated malware analytics and the reverse engineering, that's when they can start breaking down and seeing the coding of it, is what they're calling it. Now, will it look like Python? No, it's not that easy to read. It's x86. It is at the processor level. It is a verb followed by usually a numerical or hexadecimal. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I see something. 100% of. Did we just do it? Did we just get it? Did we just hit the March giveaway? Yes! Awesome! Amazing. I promise you I just woke up my son, but do not care. This is a time to celebrate. I will be dancing around with him in a little bit. This is awesome. Congratulations, everyone, for participating. The community challenge is complete. Already talked to Neil. He's going to address it tomorrow on the stream. So please come back and stick around. Exclamation point socials to see all this stuff that we're doing on with all the wow, with all the socials. Man, you guys, woo, that feels good. Thank you for doing it on this stream. This is good. So good. So good. Yes. March giveaway is completed. I wasn't that is impressed. Wow. You know, I will tell you quick little imposter syndrome. When Neil said it at 750, I questioned him for a second. I was like, I don't know, man. That's a lot. That's a lot. You sure? And he corrected me. He's like, no, we'll do it. I believe in us. We'll do it. And he was right. I was damn wrong. And that is amazing. Wow. Wow. Mm-hmm. Cheers, guys. Mm. I know. Cyber Beer Sec questioning Neil. I know. I know. For shame. Foreboding. Sentence. Anyway. To talk about it first. Admit it. I owe him a lot more than beers, Hexit. I owe Neil a lot more than beers. Come on. All right. Moving forward. All right, by the way, I should quickly explain what just happened for those that are new to the stream. I saw some of you in there. Welcome. We have a community. We do community points that can be donated towards the stream. And once we get to a certain level, we do a giveaway. We do this monthly. This one there's a lot of hype behind it. This is the highest record that we've set the points at. In the last 30 days, we did 750,000 points that were donated. You can do a max 2,000 per person per day for the stream. So, yeah, I'm very, very happy and proud of this stream for making it work and getting there. So, okay, I'm sorry, I was talking about malware analysis. let's try and do this pivot. Tap dance left and tap dance right. Okay, so with malware analysis, what ends up happening is they do what's called decompiling or disassembling the malware, and they go and they basically monitor what happens at the processor level, and you see an action like push, set, move, things like that with a hex element. And what it's doing is it's literally addressing the memory space and the data that is in that place, as well as the processor levels and all the whole lot. Okay. What is it? Malware Analyst Cookbook and DVD, as well as Practical Malware Analysis, which is behind me up on that shelf. They go into it much deeper. It is an entire career field. I've seen people that want to stay technical their entire lives. They go SOC analyst level 1, and then they start pivoting into both forensic and malware analysis, because both require a very finite attention to detail, extremely finite. So, yeah. So that's what we're talking about. When they look at those patterns, though, because imagine that malware just to run a process and things like that. If each time you're having to do a simple command, that's 10 things that gets pushed to the processor. You're talking about a very simple bit of code would be 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, 100,000 lines long when you're looking at it in x86 and in disassembly. Ollie debug for the open source tool if you want to take a look at that. With that, you can see a rhythm. You can see sort of rhythm analytics and things like that, and that's what they mean when they say you can see it in the code. If you can decompile and reverse engineer something to where you can legitimately look at the code, for example, one-line PowerShell, JavaScript attacks, things where it's not assembled code, it's compiled. It's not compiled code. Wow. End of the week, man, and I'm talking malware analytics. All right. Anyway, there's a rhythm. It's like hearing an accent in someone's voice. You can tell that there is a difference. Okay, I think I've beat that to death. We are working on getting the dead horse emoji. Getting the dead horse. And soapbox as well. What is the realistic view of stolen identities being used for cyber war? I think that there's a better better chance of fake identities, generated identities that are made just out of thin air rather than using a stolen identity per se. I see, unless that identity that is stolen has some form of access or provides some type of specialized entry or trust, social engineering. I don't particularly see why you would want to use a stolen identity per se while you're doing a cyber war or an attack. Can you use the information that you steal for the identity as part of the target list? Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to imitate that person and then act as that person on the internet? Yeah, I can see that if you're trying to gain something from somebody that's a friend or a follower or X, Y, and Z. A means to the end. Just to act like them, dependent on somebody else. In the idealism of counterintelligence, you could theoretically, I've not heard of this done yet, you could theoretically steal somebody's digital identity and then make it look like your actions were actually their actions, and basically frame them, but you would have to find somebody that is at least has some capability or knowledge or interest in cyber, and if you do, you're already should be a harder target. I feel like that sounds like something that's been already done multiple times in Hollywood, but I can't think off the top of my head any case where it was actually proven that did occur. Okay. And what has been your favorite task to do while working in the blue team sector? I'm going to answer this now, Claw. And then at the end, what webs are, and the follow-up will be after the next story. Okay, what has been my favorite task to do while working in the blue team sector? It's a toss-up between three. I know that's a cop-out, but if you're talking hands on the keyboard, I would definitely say my first multi-stage attack, finding malware that had hit a box, gone to another box, and then was using that box as an internal command and control structure to exfiltrate data. And I was able to find it, prove it, and provide the logs. And I actually wrote like a legitimate, 14-page report with IOCs and everything else like that. That was probably one of my that when you I'll do it. I'll say it this way: when you get it right, and it's quantifiable, and you just boom, and it pays off. That's my favorite task. That's my favorite, feeling in the job. Managing and teaching, which usually go hand in hand for me. I love that part of the job too, where I get to teach people how to do this. Because it's a great, oh man, so fun. It's such a great job. You get to look and tear apart stuff, and I know it's not red team. It's not necessarily the, it's like I'm 90% red team's the 10%, but you know what? I'm fine with that because I get to red team can throw a knife and I can go find it and tell you what type of knife it was, what the metal's made out of, and how far it penetrated, and then estimate what the person's height was based on the knife that was thrown. If you get my metaphor. I get to be the forensic analyst that just walks up and is like, "Oh yeah, I know this. Here's how I know," and friendly about it. And I really enjoy that part of that aspect of the job. I also enjoy the fact that I'm never the smartest in the room about everything, which is great. There's always somebody in the room that knows more about me on some type of topic, and I always get to have a conversation about something that is new and interesting. So, all right. We are coming up closer to the top of the hour, and I kind of want to get into this last little bit, guys. Swiss cybersecurity firm says it accessed the servers of a SolarWinds hacking group. Yes, it's true. The security firm says its access to servers, one of the groups that are tied to the SolarWinds breach, revealing details about who the attackers targeted and how they carried out their operations. The firm, ProDaft, also said the hackers have continued with their campaign through this month currently. The researchers said they were able to break into the attackers' computer infrastructure and review evidence of a massive campaign between August and March, which targeted thousands of companies and government organizations across Europe and the US. The aim of the group, dubbed Silverfish by the researchers, was to spy on victims and steal data, according to their report. Silverfish carried out an extremely sophisticated cyber attack on at least 4,700 targets, including government institutions, global IT providers, dozens of banking institutions in the US and EU, major auditing consulting firms, one of the world's leading COVID-19 test kit manufacturers, and aviation/defense companies, according to the report. These attackers maintained regular working hours and were most active Monday to Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., the report said. The attackers operated servers in Russia and Ukraine and shared some of the same servers as a notorious Russian criminal hacking group known as Evil Corp. That is not a Mr. Robot reference. That is a legitimate attack group. They used other methods to attack their victims besides the vulnerability in SolarWinds software, according to the researchers. They don't attribute the attacks to a known organization or country, though they describe Silverfish as an APT group, an advanced persistent threat group, which, of course, these groups are often associated with state-backed hacking operations. The researchers said in an interview that the hackers bore some hallmarks of a state-sponsored group, including not being motivated strictly by money and targeting critical infrastructure. But they said that more analytics were required to make a definitive determination. As a result, it isn't clear from the report if Silverfish is a hacking organization linked to the Russian government, who the US government and other cybersecurity firms have said is likely behind the SolarWinds attack, or if some other organization also participated. The cyber attack, which was disclosed in December, involved hackers inserting malicious codes and updates for popular software from Texas-based SolarWinds Corporation. We've covered it multiple times. You can see the VODs after this. Massive campaign, very, very advanced. While as many as 18,000 SolarWinds customers received that malicious update, but far fewer were actually interacted with and targeted for further infiltration. About 100 private sector companies and 9 U.S. government agencies have been particularly identified, according to the White House directly. Swiss cybersecurity officials say they are in contact with ProDaft, but declined to comment on the information exchange for security reasons. FBI declined to comment about the report, while SolarWinds didn't respond to a request for comment. Now, the report was received with some skepticism among a lot of the cybersecurity researchers who have little doubt that the attack was purely an espionage operation by the Russian Federation, though they declined to criticize the report publicly. Microsoft indicated in December that a second attacker may have played a role in exploiting SolarWinds. But however, researchers at the cybersecurity research firm from Malwarebytes described ProfDeft's findings as sound. We expected to discover more breaches in the aftermath of the SolarWinds disclosure late last year and knew that quite likely multiple different threat groups took advantage of this unprecedented supply chain attack, said Marcin Blazinski, chief executive officer and co-founder of Malwarebytes. Said the discovery of Silverfish reinforced the idea that more than one group exploited SolarWinds. All right. Now, they said that the attackers were an extremely organized cyber espionage group with 4 teams named 301, 302, 303, and 304, responsible for breaking their victims' computers. They placed emphasis on targeting governments and large corporations, especially those under the Fortune 500. According to the report, the hackers wrote comments in Russian slang and vernacular, while English was the other main language used. Source code also contained ID numbers and nicknames, including new hacker Cyber Bro, Net Support, and Walter, for 14 people who likely worked under the supervision of 4 teams, the report says. Perhaps the most striking from the report is the highly organized professionalism of the threat actor. It was very clear that the hackers were highly skilled, well-funded, and is operating with a clearly defined mission brief. I think we're beating this topic to death. I've provided. Oh, actually, you know what? I did not provide the links in the chat. Let me throw those up. Just by the Insurance Journal. And read more, and they also have links to the actual report itself. Okay, so moving on to tonight's main topic of back and forth discussions with this. Okay, should you hack back? Should you attack back? Now, in this case, ProDaft is a cybersecurity provider. It's a threat intelligence company as well, cyber threat intelligence company. And they are part of the big research. They're working on the research as well. If they were able to decode, identify, and then gain access to that server, and it would make sense based on their business model to do so to further gain intelligence on that matter, correct? Now, at that point, would that be considered intellectual property? Would that access be considered a business advantage? Let's take a step back. Should all companies be allowed to attack? Is what they did illegal? I see. Oh, hold on. What would Lee do? Everyone has cool hacker group names. Yeah. So we've talked previously about maintaining anonymity whenever you're doing both attacking as well as defending. It's highly recommended that anything that's tied to your security accounts work under a code account or anything like that, just in case they get compromised. We can talk about that another night. But yes, Cyberbro, Net Support, Walter, New Hacker, etc. So whether you should or should not attack back, whether you should or should not hack back, what is the legality there? What is the discussion on can you or can't you? Theoretically, there has to be a victim. Asterisk, this is not legal advice. This is a discussion and a conversation. From my point of view, there would have to be a victim. We've seen this previously where people who were claiming that this isn't my server that had all the illegal stuff on it wanted to post a claim against how the evidence was collected because it involved hacking. But they couldn't because they would have to provide logs, which would mean that they had access to the server and it was their server. So it never really got very far. So can you attack the attacker? Can you break in if you see a call home? For research purposes, technically yes. Should you? You have to look at the return on investment. The return on value, the return on time, and the risk. You risk pissing them off. To be bluntly honest, you risk making the attackers mad. So unless you have a really good handle on the situation, my personal recommendation is don't do that. Because if they have access, they can, slash burn and pull out. Have we seen that previously? I can't think of an example. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'm just saying. Should you? Should you attack back? Again, resources. Somebody asked previously. Somebody was asking previously about stolen identities. Well, what if that did come true and somebody used a stolen identity? If you attacked back and you hit a server that was not the one that was intended because there was a relay and you caused downtime on another company, would that land you into a bunch of hot water and possibly legal trouble? Yeah, but the cyber war falls in scope. That's the question. How do we define the cyber war? Because there's no actual declaration of war currently, right? From the point of a government and institutions that are hired by the government, yeah, it probably does fall into that nice little gray area. From a private matter, you get a lot of leeway when you use the term researcher really well. However, to be a researcher, your efforts have to pay off in some manner, right? Okay, so we're coming up on the top of the hour. Let me roll through the questions and I'll keep talking about this as well. Follow up, what has been the one you dislike the most is regarding blue team work? Not really. So you'll find that blue team work goes in ebbs, flows, and waves, and I don't like that. In some organizations, it becomes an emergency due to poor preparation or politics. It becomes an emergency due to politics. So once your time gets taken away because of politics, and then, for example, SolarWinds, obviously that pulls everybody's attention and you want to review everything that's involved there. And you still have your day-to-day stuff because there's plenty of other malware. So this ebb and flow rubber bands type of workload, that's a little difficult at times. Back when I was in a true SOC, I didn't like overnight shift, working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That sucked. You get the hang of it eventually, but if you have poor account management in your poor account and poor tool management in your environment, it can be very difficult to work and take very long time for ridiculous reasons. And what I mean by that is non-synchronous logins to multiple platforms with timeouts, and you have to keep in mind like 3 dozen different passwords and usernames because they aren't standardized at all. And you have to have your VPN to log into this turned on to log into this particular platform, but you can't have your VPN to log into this platform, that type of stuff. Like when people just put the tools out there and then forget about the user experience for you, the analyst, that can get extremely tiresome very quickly. Nowadays in my career, I'm advanced enough that I would leave a position if the tool sets were too difficult to realistically work on, because I ain't got time for that. That's too much stress. Like if you can't manage systems that are made to interconnect and work together, and how do I expect you to provide a good wholesome environment for the users to interact, prevent the 80% of malware out there? Yeah. So thank you, Claude, for that. What's website do you think is the best for IT jobs? LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an excellent resource. I cannot say it enough. LinkedIn is awesome for jobs. Claude, what do you think of SSO, single sign-on? It's great, as long as it's appropriate with MFA. And the APIs are strong on the back end too. Can you recommend some places where a person can practice some blue team things? So look up incident response, threat hunting labs, incident response labs. There are several capture the flag style events for incident responders through Splunk. I can also, I do have some resources that I can post up in the Discord. That was Mrs. Root, right? Yeah, Mrs. Root. I know you're in there, so I'll post some stuff up in the Discord too. Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there for everything from forensics to network analysis to malware analysis. EDR, day-to-day incident response, is extremely difficult to do in a lab environment because you are consolidating multiple platforms' logs into a surmised picture and making your assessment based on the information that you collect. You can do forensics really easy because that's a single tool. You can do network analysis because that's like 2 or 3 tools and they're all open source. Same with malware analysis, 2 or 3 tools, all open source. Those are easy, but when you're talking about an enterprise type of lab, that's where it's better to do paid environments, and those types of courses. Let's see. We have entered cyber war territory, right? Yes. You talk to a lot of professionals, especially ones that have been around for a minute. They'll tell you right now that we are in a cyber war, but like a cyber cold war type of thing. Effects happen all the time, back and forth. It's state sponsored, but nobody's really crossed the line yet to start sanctions up. Nobody's, well, actually, China gets sanctioned now and then. Russia too, now that I think about it. Well, not sanctioned. They're all mean mugging right now, really bad. But regarding cyber warfare, kinetic events have been pretty limited. I'm not going to say completely limited, but they've been pretty limited. All right, we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to real quickly. Oh, Cyber Columbian, loving your audio. Oh, thank you very much, Cyber Columbian. I see you. Loving the audio today. Thank you. Updated the mic, updated the stream, so I'm glad it sounded good. Hacking back is boring and not profitable. Hash. Your transfer risk to your insurance company, unless this is your specific business. Fully agree. I do agree with that. That's one of the things you have to look at when you're talking about hacking back. You need to make sure that the risk is not too high, that there is a return on investment. If you don't work in cyber services or research or some other way where this is going to be beneficial to your company, it takes a long time. You have to do a lot of attribution. Sometimes that attribution is difficult. The knowledge base that has to be behind you to support that attribution is very vast and expensive. Yeah. So there's a lot to it. Are you technically declaring war if you attack another company from another country? Not you as a not private company to private company. No, you could be accused of espionage. But no, war has to be declared by the regional government, right? And however that happens is dependent upon the actual region. You'd be considered an independent attacker, and it would either be probably categorized as espionage or terrorism, depending on what the goals are. Bit of a broad context. We talking private, individual, company, government, or nation state? Are you talking about hacking back? That's the use case, all right? Are we talking private individual? Should you be hacking back if you're getting hacked? Well, my question is, why is a private individual being hacked that badly that they want to attack back? And how do they have that skill set? Company, is there a return on investment? Government, that's already happening. Government and nation state may as well be one and the same, and that goes back and forth all the time, right? And so we don't make those decisions. But what I was more so talking about was either the company entity or the small group entity. I linked the wrong article for the last story. I apologize. I will fix that, and I'll send it to you guys via !Discord. You'll be able to find us in the Discord, and I'll link the last article correctly in there. I apologize for that. You can also talk to me if you hit !SecIT. Talk to me on Discord, talk to me on Twitter, and we can, I will be more than happy to hear any recommendations you have to improve and provide better content, provide more value added for you guys. Okay. You can hit !merch as well. Take a look at the, yep, that's hidden on screen. Take a look at the nice Tipsy Cyber. Get your hats, get your polos. And by the way, this was a really special thing for me with Neil. When we started talking about a merch store, I was like, I really want a merch store that has polos, you know, so I can wear them into professional events and work and things like that, and you know, be proud of it while still being slightly professional. So I'm really glad that we found a good merch store to do the polos with. And yeah, what do you think is the best thing about being a red teamer? Red teamers get to be the cutting edge because they're constantly working with new vulnerabilities. And there is a bit there's a bit of you know, you get to throw the first punch per se. And all right, I'll give you guys a quick story from whenever I used to be in the military. I walked into so we call them COCs, but Combat Operations Center. So I walked into the Combat Operations Center at a flight unit. So they were dealing with planes in the air was their primary purpose. Okay. They were working out of a tent off of the flight line because they were practicing to be, you know, in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever. It's what we're used to in practice. So imagine, if you will, like an FTC style control room, but you're in a very, very large tent, like 30 by 30, 30 by 50 ballpark. And then there's a bunch of offshoot corridors that are each like 30 by 20 offshoot corridors, and people with tables lined up and all these laptops, and they're all chatting back and forth, and you know, 3 or 4 big monitors on them with flight plans and everything like that, right? And to get into this place, I had to show my ID at least 4 times just to get on base, then get past the checkpoint, then park my car, go past another checkpoint to get into the barbed wire, and then another time just to even walk into that center, right? So a lot of security. Big, serious, a bunch of people trained in the military, you know, Marines, everything like that. And I have this guy, and he's go-getter, but younger. And he goes, and I look at him and I'm like, so what is this system responsible for? Because I wasn't familiar with what the application was that they were talking about. He describes it as basically GPS. It's an offline sort of GPS that does the mapping and lets everybody know where birds are. All right, I'm going to keep it very vague intentionally. All right. And with that description, he goes, and it's right here, and you can only access it if you're on this computer or on this computer right here. Like, you seem very certain about that. He goes, oh yeah, no, you can only access it if you're on this computer or this computer right here. I'm like, but it's connected to the network. It's a classified network, but it's connected to the network, isn't it? He's like, well, yeah, but it's a classified network, and you know, it doesn't have remote access at all. You can only access it from this computer and this computer. I'm like, but it's showing up on the screen over there. You're showing this stuff up on the screen over there. You're communicating through this network that you have, but it's a classified network. Okay, I understand that. But it's an application that's connected to some form of internet, correct? Yes, but you can only access it from here and there. I was just shaking my head. I was like, okay, if you say so. So I walked out of the COC. I walked out of the fence. I was about 150 yards away from that young gentleman in the tent. And I run into the red team. My friends, the red team. Clint was one of them that I mentioned last week. And I ran into those guys. I'm like, hey, I didn't know you guys were running an operation at the same time I was. What's going on, guys? How you doing? We talked this, that, and the other. And I told him about how very specific this man was about these laptops. You cannot get into this laptop unless it's here or here. I promise you that. And they looked at me and they laughed. They're like, we've been there for 3 days. What are they talking about? We're on the network right now, just outside this wire, and we simulated by going in at night and placing. When they do these placements and these simulations, all they do is they take a picture of devices nearby to show that we were able to physically get into your area. We were able to put a network device, and this is how we compromise this network theoretically. And then they are given an actual line to connect in. That's the way you deal with classified operations, so you're not actually breaking classified protocol, right? But the simulation, and then they were testing, you know, different capabilities, and they were like, oh yeah, we've been on his laptop, we've been able to play, we know we can play around with that application now, so it's good. So yeah, that type of scenario where you're just like, oh no, I've been in your stuff for ages now, that's probably the funnest part about being a red team. That, and usually you're in a consulting position, you're traveling a lot more. You can do it remote too, but engagements tend to be a lot more rambunctious. You go all over the place with them. So Palmy, do you know anything about e-learning security blue team certs? There is very few reviews to be found on them and nothing on YouTube on ENDP and ECI. Ooh. Okay, Palmy, I do not, but I will find out. Maybe I'll start reviewing them myself to give you some better certainty. All right, so we are 10 minutes past the time. Thank you guys so much. Coming to the top of the hour, or past that top of the hour, actually. All right, and it's been good. Thank you guys so much. We're coming to the end of the night. I want to thank my mods for their ongoing work, and I definitely want to thank you guys, you very much so, chat, for coming to hang out, listening to my stories and the telling. I really hope I was value added, and I really hope that you enjoyed yourself. Please hit !point Discord. Drop some suggestions for improving. And here's it is to the end of the night. Cheers to you. It's better to buy a small bouquet and give it to your friend this very day than a bushel of roses, white and red, to lay on his coffin after he's dead. So cheers. Good seeing you. Thank you so much for coming out. Hey, thanks for watching. I want to thank Neil and the Cyber Insecurity channel for providing a place to have real conversations with real people. Feel free to throw a like or to follow me on the socials in the description. Please remember to click subscribe, hit that notification bell, and if you want to see other videos, click that stuff that's all over the screen. See you next time.